It's time to take your seat in the front row with Mike Vaccaro. Here's your host, Mike Vaccaro.
Hey, thank you, Chuck. Welcome, everybody. Mike Vaccaro with you once again in the front row. As always, behind the scenes, JR Recruitment, our creator, producer, and director. Up to episode number 41 now, and we're talking baseball. We're doing that with Trot Nixon. Nixon grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, was an outstanding high school football and baseball player before getting drafted by the Red Sox. He was a member of the 2004 World Series team for the Red Sox, that team that ended the curse of the Bambino, first World Series championship in 86 years. He talks to us about his journey and also about his coaching and coaching his sons now, who are both going to be playing at NC State, where he was originally signed to play before getting drafted. All that and more coming up. Episode number 41 of In the Front Row with Mike Vaccaro, featuring Trot Nixon. Trot, once again, we appreciate you joining us here today. It's great to get a chance to talk to you. We're keeping this local here in the Wilmington area, as you're a Wilmington guy, but you're born in Durham, but basically grew up in Wilmington, I guess. When did you make the move to Wilmington in your life?
Oh, yeah, I was young. I was a baby, and we moved down. My father was in medical school, finishing up medical school at Duke in his residency, and moved down here to Wilmington, where he and a few other doctors kind of started up Southeastern Dialysis Unit. And so I was an infant. I don't remember any part of it. Yeah, I was born in Durham. I don't even know if I lasted a year in Durham before we moved down here to Wilmington. And so yeah, I'm homegrown here in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I love it. And so Wilmington is my home. And when I got married to my wife, Catherine, she lived in Charlotte, so we lived a couple years in Charlotte after we got married and moved back to Wilmington, because it's just, this is where I wanted to be. It's where she actually wanted to be, close to the beach, and so it's great.
Yeah, it's a tough place to leave for sure. Growing up here for you, what were you doing sports-wise? What sports were you playing? What were you getting into?
I played everything. When growing up, it wasn't as specialized as it is nowadays, obviously, and the seasons never overlapped. So I played football, basketball, then it was soccer, then baseball. Like I said, none of the seasons ever overlapped. There was no travel then. I don't have, nothing bad to say about travel ball, but I was always maybe a little high strung. So I was in every sport, and I loved every minute of it growing up. And my favorite class in school was obviously recess. So, but in the same sense, growing up, all four sports. And it wasn't until I got probably to high school is when I started to drop a couple sports here and there, and then eventually just focused on two sports, and that was football and baseball in New Hanover.
Yeah, New Hanover High School, as you said, football, baseball, certainly they work well when you look at the seasons for those. How did one maybe help the other? They're very different sports, but I'm sure there's some carryover from one to the other.
There is. I think it's just the fact that every sport, it kind of opens up different athletic abilities for kids. It introduces them to different movements, different things physically, I would say. But then also there's a flip side of that coin where the older you get, it starts to help you mentally as well. In most sports, if you take 10 free throws and you make 3 of them, that's not very good unless you're Shaq. So that's fine with that, because he can do that. But in the same sense in football, if I was 3 for 10 passing, I don't think my Coach Miller would have been too happy with me, or Coach Sasser, my offensive coordinator, would have been too happy for me. So when you look at baseball, we kind of say, okay, if you're 3 for 10, you're a pretty good hitter. You're hitting 300. So some of those dynamics, the older you get, start to mature you mentally. But the biggest thing when you're young and growing up, I was always a fan and always will be a fan, along with, I'm sure, when you talk to a lot of professional athletes, college coaches, high school coaches, they want kids to get out and experience all these sports and the movement that is required in all these sports and the discipline and just kind of understanding all that stuff. And that, when raising my two boys, Chase and Luke, that's exactly what they did. And we always encouraged their friends, their parents to do the same thing. Don't just get stuck in one sport, but go out there and play a variety. Now, there's a lot of kids too that just don't have any interest, and that's fine too. But my biggest thing is for all kids to have interest in something, getting outside and playing, because we all know as adults right now that it's real easy to pick up your phone and spend a lot of time on your phone, playing video games and so forth. Sometimes that can be a nice little outlet for them, but being able to get outside, run around, have all these different movements, but also being around other kids, competing with other kids, having fun. And because usually when kids are outside and they're running around, their excitement, it does a lot for them, not only physically but mentally as well. And I think that's real important, especially since what we've had to deal with the past few years with COVID and how the response was for that. Honestly, I don't think we did a very good job of paying attention to the kids that are in that situation, but that's a whole nother story for another time. But that's my biggest encouragement for kids out there nowadays, is to get out there and play as many sports as you possibly can. I don't care if it's golf. I don't care if it's tennis, volleyball, whatever. Every sport has its purpose athletically, physically, as well as mentally. And so that's my one big thing.
Yeah, myself and JR were lucky enough to have kids that are active and playing on those teams and different sports, as you mentioned there. And again, you played different sports. You honed into football and baseball in high school. Let's start on the football side of things. As you said, you played for the late Joe Miller here at New Hanover High School in Wilmington, and you excelled for sure, as you broke records that were set by Sonny Jurgensen and Roman Gabriel. Did you know at the time that you were doing that, and did you know how big of a deal it was?
No, I had no idea. I think when you got to that point, it was just like, I'm doing whatever needs to be done to win ball games. Because ultimately, and honestly, in those situations, I wanted to win. My teammates wanted to win. We wanted to try to win a state title. And that was our ultimate goal. But breaking those records, the whatever record it was that that I surpassed with those two great NFL quarterbacks, were quickly shattered probably a few years down the road by New Hanover High School quarterbacks. I think we've had I don't know what the record books are at New Hanover, and especially in New Hanover County, but I know there's been quite a few Wildcat quarterbacks that have destroyed some of those all passing records, all-purpose yards records and so forth. But yeah, it was great when I broke those records. Honestly, I didn't think much about it. I was very honored, and but just like a lot of records, whether it's state records, county records, high school records, records that are in professional sports, so forth. They're great, but they're going to be broken at some point in time, and you just accept that. You honor it the way that it should be honored, and then you just move on, because things are going to change, and change for the better. Put it that way, and it was an honor to do that. But like you said earlier, I didn't think much about it. I don't think I even realized it till it was in the paper the next day.
Yeah, so that was the fall of 1992. The spring, you switch to baseball, you win a state championship, you lead the Wildcats to a state championship, and you had another tremendous year. You were the all-state player in both football and baseball that year as well. Obviously, find that balance between the two sports didn't look like it was hard for you, but was it hard to go from one sport, excel there, and then transition right into another sport with baseball?
Not really. When the football season ended, obviously it ended kind of on a sour note for us. But uh, I really kind of looked at myself as, just a part of the team. I wanted so bad not only to, go out there and win. Everybody wants to win for themselves, but it was like, my teammates put me in a lot of great positions, and there's a lot of people that, had a part in my success, not only in high school, but also professionally. And when we talking about high school, you know, my family, my mom and dad, the support I have from my brother and two sisters. Then you go to my coaches, high school coaches. I couldn't ask for anything better than, Coach Miller, Coach Sasser. Their entire staff. I can go through the whole staff, as well as Coach Brewster and Bill Rhodes and the entire staff, baseball wise. They had a lot to do with my successes, and then my teammates. I can't just go out there and play quarterback by myself. There's 10 other guys on the field with me in football. There's 8 other guys on the baseball field with me. And so my teammates had a lot to do with that as well. Fan bases, coming up, showing up, and supporting us. So the transition from sport to sport, it's kind of ingrained in what you have to do to put yourself in a position to be successful. It's just a matter of going out and kind of fine tuning and honing in those skills. I lost out on a few opportunities from a baseball standpoint to play with, to represent the United States. I made the junior Olympic team, but I was firm on saying this. I didn't even have to talk to my dad about it, but when I did make that team, I realized that team was going to be playing throughout the whole month of August, but I had a responsibility to my teammates with some unfinished business, so to say, my senior year. Didn't get that business finished like we wanted to, but I've missed out on the opportunity to play in the Junior Olympics because my teammates and my coaches at Hanover football meant so much to me in the 3 years prior that I wasn't going to leave them out to dry for this. So went back and played football, obviously, and was there for 2-a-days and all that fun stuff. And but I'll take that. That was something that, I was more than happy to pass up. It was a privilege to have been voted onto that team and would love to experience that and represented my country. But in the same sense, I had an obligation and a want to represent New Hanover High School, be back there for football. And I would have enjoyed missing 2-a-days, but I think that's what toughens you up when we're our 2-a-days at New Hanover.
Yeah, anybody that goes through that knows some of the pain that goes with that, but how that certainly gets you ready for the season as well. Well, again, a great career, senior year, all state in both football and baseball, and you were signed to go to NC State. So take us through that process and the recruiting that went with that, and the decision with that, because you're set to go there. I'm sure you knew you were going to chance to be a high draft pick as well. So what went through that recruitment process to get to NC State?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. First of all, a little bit challenging, because the opportunities that were there, some of the things that you dream about when you're probably a kid and you're watching teams on television. NC State and East Carolina, both of them, even though those are rivals, and I believe they're getting ready to play. I don't know if it's this weekend or next weekend.
Yeah.
I believe it's next weekend. But they had been recruiting me for a long time from football and baseball side of things. But then as I got into my junior year, I did a couple football camps, one of them being at Alabama. And just in those 3 or 4 days of a football camp at Alabama, it kind of put me on the map to the point where Alabama wanted to offer me a scholarship to go there. And Alabama was just coming off of a national title year. And went down there, experienced that, the whole atmosphere. Gene Stallings was the head football coach, Coach Woody McCorvey, who had been at Clemson. I believe he might still be at Clemson right now, but he recruited me. But it was kind of a situation where even though I did love football, I also wanted to play baseball. And long story short, the side of Alabama baseball never made contact with me, and basically made me feel like I probably wouldn't have fit into their program. And just, I ended up, when I made my decision to go to NC State, and there were some other teams obviously on there too that were on my list. I think my top 5 list was NC State, Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, Alabama, and also East Carolina. And a lot of people said, what'd you put East Carolina on there for? I said, well, I think it was just the relationships that I had with the coaches. Football coaches, believe it or not, from East Carolina went to Georgia Tech. So that friendship, that respect, that friendship, that communication that we already had continued down there. And then obviously the baseball side of things at Georgia Tech too. But, Notre Dame and Alabama were just two organizations two programs from a football standpoint that were kind of like the Mecca, at the time. And even though I really wanted to go to Alabama, my heart was dead set on NC State, and primarily because, it's closer to home, but we kind of tried to run an offense similar in football to what NC State did. And from a baseball standpoint, I had gotten to know the coaching staff for almost 3 years at NC State. So that was primarily the biggest reason why I chose NC State. And people said, well, did you want to try to play professionally in both sports? That never once crossed my mind. I wanted to play professional baseball. Football, believe it or not, was something that when I played Pop Warner, I enjoyed it, but there was a little bit of a timid factor, believe it or not. And the only time that the timid factor went away was when my dad, he probably will scoff at this a little bit, when he motivated me uniquely to the point where I was so upset and so mad, I didn't think about anything. I just went out and played. But there was always kind of like, what's going to happen in this game? Am I going to get hurt? Am I going to this and that and the other? And believe it or not, somehow, some way, I think it was just the whole mindset of going to New Hanover High School. When you get into the weight room and you're working out, you're lifting, what that does to you physically and mentally, as well as going out and competing, the game of football just started to grow on me. And I love the competition. I love the contact. I was probably stupid at times when I did certain things, but I think that part of the game helped me in baseball to a certain degree. I think one fed off of another. And but baseball was always my first love, and football just kind of grew and grew and grew. And but I never anticipated or never wanted to be, a professional, quarterback, as well as hopefully a professional baseball player. I just wanted to go compete, and that's what I wanted to do at NC State. And that was the story, and it kind of, why I wanted to go to State. I always loved State, and I'm kind of fortunate now. I know we'll probably get into this later, but I have one. My oldest son, Chase, is playing baseball. He's in his sophomore year at NC State, and my younger one, Luke, just accepted a scholarship to play baseball at State. He's in his senior year this year, but it'll be next year.
Yeah, I know it's an exciting time for you as a parent to see that happen. And again, an exciting time for you. Back in 1993, you get drafted, 7th overall pick by the Boston Red Sox. So your dream of playing professional baseball is about to come true. How'd you find out you were drafted, and what was your thought of the Red Sox at that time?
I it was kind of cool. We kind of got out of school a little bit early that day. They let me get out, and the best part too was a lot of my teammates, had gotten out of school or maybe got their parents to write them a special note like, "Hey, my son's got to go to an important meeting or something today," because I wanted my teammates to be there as well, and I would love to have had a lot of my football teammates. But we were at the house and just kind of watching. Um, I believe it was an Atlanta Braves game that was on television because they didn't have what they have now. I mean, nowadays it's a spectacle. I think it's pretty cool. I think a little bit of it is too much, but in the same sense, it doesn't really matter to me. It's fine. But and you can see the little ticker tape at the bottom of the draft, and but back then, you kind of waited by the phone, and the phone rang, and I ran downstairs from what we called our little game room and above the garage, and answered the phone, and that's where I was told. I believe it was Lou Gorman that he was the general manager at the time, had called and told me that the Red Sox had drafted us, and congratulations. And I tell you, I might get in trouble because if it wasn't Mr. Gorman, it was either Howard McCullough or Jeff Zona, the scout who scouted me. But one of those three guys had called me. So very exciting time. I got a picture of it, with me answering the phone, and Coach Brewster and Coach Rhodes were kind of in the doorway. But and that's when, I had reached, my dream. I kind of reached that mountaintop, but that wasn't the mountaintop that I wanted. I wanted to kind of go past that, but kind of put things in perspective. Obviously, I was very excited and to move on into that chapter in my life. And, we went through all the negotiating. It's a lot different now. I explained that to Luke last night. It was a lot different back then. You did a lot of negotiating, and it took most of the summer. And during that summer, I actually went to football camp, and I believe the Red Sox didn't think I had any intentions of playing football and going to school, but they quickly found out that I was literally at football practice and going through everything and enjoying that whole process, and that I was taking it seriously because I did. I wanted to play football and baseball at NC State. I knew there was an opportunity if I did well enough, I can get drafted after my sophomore year because of my age. And so I was taking it seriously. And I did know that in the back of my mind, I really wanted to play professionally. I got dinged a couple of times. I got hit one time, didn't say anything to the trainer. My right elbow swelled up so bad, and I showed my dad, and I was like, "You think that's all right?" And he freaked out. And long story short, the trainer aired me out. He goes, "Why didn't you come in here for this? You're getting me in trouble." I was like, "I'll be all right." And but I enjoyed it. I loved every minute of it. And it got down to the I believe it was the afternoon right before we're having the red-white scrimmage game. And I can't remember the player it was. I went out to Carter Finley, and we're going to tell the coaches that, I'm going to go ahead and sign and play professional baseball. I think classes actually started the next day. So I was like, why are we having a scrimmage the day before school starts? I got at 8 o'clock in the morning. Wago at one of my classes. I think it was an English class. So it was like, I got to get it going early. But I went out there, and one of the first players that I saw, it drives me crazy. I can't remember his name, but he was a preseason All ACC, possible All American. He was a defensive end, and I just went over to him. He was the one that hit me in the elbow. He didn't mean to, but it happened. I didn't care one bit. But I just told him that, I appreciate everything, and I had a blast, and best of luck, but I'm going to go ahead and sign professionally. And he just kind of winked at me. He goes, "I thought you were coming over here to say that because I didn't have on my battle rattle. So I wasn't getting ready for the scrimmage. So I ended up telling the coaches and the coaching staff there, and didn't, in hindsight, it probably wasn't appropriate enough to do that before the scrimmage, but I think a lot of the coaches saw the writing on the wall, that I really wanted to go play professional baseball. And there's a couple other things that I found out, but I don't hold any ill will towards it. But one thing that stood out, I'll keep it to myself, that I basically called Dad up that night and said, yeah, let's I'm ready to go play some baseball. And that was that. And but during that summer, other than the bonus of going ahead and signing and starting my professional career, is when I met my wife, Catherine, at the time. She was a little bit older, and early on in the summer, Coach Toman, who's assistant coach at NC State, had introduced me to Catherine, because through Coach Toman and his relationship with the coaches at in Rockingham, he had known Catherine for a few years and introduced her to me. So we started that relationship, which is still going strong right now.
Yeah, so I guess, long story short, defensive ends, they probably sent a lot of people to their baseball careers, right? So that hit
Yeah.
helped probably speed it up a little bit. And let's get into that baseball career now. 1994 to 98, you're kind of bouncing around in the minor leagues, but you do make a couple of stints with the Red Sox as well. Do you remember your debut? It was September 21st, 1996. Do you remember that?
Was that against the Yankees?
It was against the Yankees. You were a pinch runner, and
Yeah.
you're out in right field that game.
Yeah. When I went to pinch run, first of all, I mean, when I went up there, it was a contractual thing. It was in my contract, be called up in September. Believe it or not, I didn't want to go up there, because I was like, look, I don't deserve to be up here. This is a roster spot somebody else would be taking. I know this is contractually. I remember my manager, Ken Maka, who I had actually for about 3 years, he told me, he goes, I'm going to be really upset. And he said a few other words, if you don't go up there and experience that, because your career could end next year and you'll never experience the major leagues. This is what you earned when you got drafted. So I'm like, all right, well, so I went up there, and, I was just like the guy who sit on the end of the corner. If any of the players need me to run back into the clubhouse to get anything, some coffee or whatever, I go do that. And then all of a sudden, I believe the game was going into extra innings, and they wanted a pinch runner at first. Well, I had to use the bathroom so bad, okay? And I was afraid to move. I'm this young rookie punk, and I was like, all right, I can't do it. I can't do it. So I go out and run and pinch run, and I think it ended up, I don't know if I got to second base or it was a force out at second base that ended the inning. And when I went out there, Catherine was my fiance at the time. She started screaming, and nobody knew who she was. She's in Yankee Stadium as well. Started screaming, goes, "Oh, it's my fiance, it's my fiance." And little as she knows, like, I had to use the bathroom so bad. I was nervous. I'm like, oh my God, this is Yankee Stadium, and I'm pinch running. So yeah, it was probably about 1,000 miles an hour and very nerve wracking going out there. At that point, but then I think there was another opportunity. I went up the next year, I believe it was, it was later on in the year where I got to play against the Yankees at home. And that's when, I was 2 for 4 and got a couple hits. The funny thing about that, my first at bat, Joe Girardi's catching. And I go up there, and I'm sitting here. I get the sign, I start, twirling my bat a little bit, looking out at the pitcher, and the bat dropped out of my hands. And I picked it up real quick, and all I could see was like Girardi was like this, giving signals, and he's looking at me, and then he sees me drop the bat, and he looks at me, and then turns around and looks at the umpire like this, and I'm just like, oh my God, just pick it up and go. And I can't remember if it was the first or second pitch, and I hit a line drive back up the middle. I got my first big league hit then. And the coolest thing that I got to, when I got to third base, time was called. I think maybe the Yankees had come out and had not a pitching change, but just a conversation. Ricky Bonus was the pitcher on the mound. And Hall of Famer Wade Boggs, who used to be a Red Sox, he was a Yankee. He came over there to me. He goes, "Hey, kid, hey, congratulations on your first hit. Hopefully you have thousands more." And I was like, man, this is a Hall of Famer. Actually, right now, at the time, he wasn't a Hall of Famer, but I knew he was going to be. Came over and said that. And long story short, I ended up, my family, we got to go to David Ortiz's induction. And on Friday night, we went to a dinner, and Wade was there. And I actually brought that conversation up to him and told him how much that really meant to me. And for my boys to hear that and all that stuff, I was like a kid in the candy store. And so that was pretty cool, and ended up getting another hit later in that game. And the Yankees went on into the playoffs. I know our season had ended, and but moving forward, that was a great experience. Obviously got my first hit, first two hits and so forth. I scored a run as well. So that was kind of the start of it. And after that, I went back to AAA for 2 years. Struggled my first year in AAA. The whole first half, I was terrible. And Rico Petrocelli was my hitting coach. And I think once the first half ended, I was hitting maybe right around 200, below 200. I just, I didn't know what in the world. And Rico kept working with me. We changed up a few things. I started, believe it or not, I started choking up on the bat. I'd spread my stance out a little bit. And I already had a lot of at bats to the point where you had to do a lot just to get it over 200 and get it up to at least 250. Well, at the end of the year, I think at the halfway mark, I had 3 or 4 home runs. At the end of the year, I think I ended up hitting 247. I had 20 home runs. Basically, in the second half, I hit 285 and hit about 15 or 16 home runs. And so it started to click. And going into my second year of AAA, I had one special teammate. His name was Jimmy Hurst. Honest to God, he looked like Michael Jordan to a certain point. He's 6'5", had a ball head. There's some great stories about when he was with the White Sox and when Michael Jordan came back to play. He was a character from Alabama, could have been an All-American in basketball, decided to play baseball. He and I kind of competed against each other and pushed each other, encouraged each other throughout the entire year. But we both ended up hitting over 300. I ended up having, I think I'll hit 320. I had 28 home runs, and I stole 25 bases, which was, he and I wanted to see if we can both do the 20-20, and was able to achieve that. And then that's when I got called up for September. Obviously that was my best minor league season where everything kind of came together. Got called up, had a good September. I think I hit 280 and actually did enough for Jimmy Williams to put me on the playoff roster that year in 1998. And actually got I think 3 at-bats in game 3 against the Indians. I got 1 hit, I believe it was. I think I was 1 for 3, but that's what kind of put me in a position to make the team in 1999.
Yeah, 1999, your first full season with the team. 2003, maybe your best season. And let's talk about 2003 before we get to 2004, because you guys make the playoffs. Obviously, it comes down to you and the Yankees in the ALCS. You had a really good series there. It goes 7, the Yankees win. But did that help set things up for 2004 for the Red Sox?
Yeah, we were right there on the doorstep. A lot of things started coming together late in that season, and Really exciting. I think it really excited, the fans were always there in Boston. And I think that really kind of put them over the edge, because I think 1999, we made it to the AL championship, lost to the Yankees. 2000, 2001, obviously 2001 was 9/11 that year, got pushed back the Yankees. But we're kind of always underneath the Yankees. We just could not get over that hump. And if you just watch the captain, Yankees were really, really good in that time period. And it wasn't a situation where they had they had all-stars at every position, it seemed like, but they just had a really good team. They had a veteran team that knew how to compete, knew how to win, knew how to go through that. And to be able to do that year after year after year was really impressive. So we knew we had to do something to get over that hump. And we're right there in Game 7. But I think moving into the 2004 season, our ownership went out and filled in the pieces that we felt like we needed to solidify. Obviously, brought in Keith Folk, the closer role. Our bullpen did a fantastic job. They kind of found their niche late in the season in 2003, but everybody kind of really wanted it. But it was like a committee, closer by committee. And some players liked that. Some players didn't. They just wanted to kind of have they're creatures of habit. If you have a setup guy that usually comes in the 7th or 8th inning, they're used to coming in. They're not used to coming in the 5th or 6th. It's a strange dynamic, and until you play several years in the big leagues, people just wouldn't understand that. But our bullpen clicked. But having that bona fide closer would shore up everything in that bullpen. So we went out and got Keith Folk. Also got Kurt Schilling. You got another Hall of Fame pitcher to go side by side with Pedro. And there was a few other acquisitions I know we got. We got Big Poppy came in, I think, in 2002. Manny was, I think, 2001, 2000, I think. So everything's kind of started to come together. And there were some other pieces in that. Even though we lost Nomar, who I love to death and kind of grew up in the minor leagues, even though he catapulted a lot quicker than I did, never lost that friendship. Always try to talk to him at least once a year. We got Orlando Cabrera playing shortstop. Mark Bellhorn came in as a second baseman along with Pokey Reese. Both of those guys did a fantastic job. Unbelievable. I think the biggest thing, I even split time with Gabe Kapler out in right field. We had Kevin Millar. Bill Miller came in, obviously, in 2003. He had, I can't remember if he won the batting title in 04 or if it was 05. But what it was we had a team that we cared about each other. And it was a situation, Kurt Schilling said, with this clubhouse, this team we have, you couldn't wait to get to the field every day. That's how much fun we had. It wasn't just to get to the field and hurry up and play. It was like, and he was right, you couldn't wait to get to the clubhouse and just sit there and just be a part of it all. I mean, we had a good time in the clubhouse. We ribbed on each other. It didn't matter who you were. You could have been Ortiz, Manny Ramirez, Pedro, these guys, you hold them on a pedestal. I mean, they're up there, but they were just like everybody else. We're messing with everybody and joking around. Everybody's the brunt of the joke. And, we had the captain and Veritek over there as well. But once once it got to about 6:30, you could see everybody, they lock in, and we all had one goal, and that was to get back to the postseason. And try to finish it out. And that's exactly what we were able to do in 04, get back to the postseason and, have that vaulted possible 7-game series again with the Yankees and see what happens then.
Yeah, the Yankees win the East that year, so you're a wild card. You sweep the Angels. And again, as you said, you and the Yankees, the evil empire, as the Red Sox refer to them as. Again, you mentioned the captain. If you
Larry
watched
Lucchini,
that, you saw a little bit of that.
fire.
But yeah, you mentioned some great players, but then you go into that series and you're down 3-0. Take us to the mindset of you, the team. Again, this is the rival. This is the team you've got to get past, and now you're down 3-0 in the ALCS in 2004.
Yeah, and people, talk about the evil empire, and when you get out there and you're competing, you're not there's no hate out there. Even though we got into it a few times with them, and emotions kind of took the better of us at times on both sides. But I had a tremendous amount of respect for those guys over there. Jorge Posada, obviously Derek Jeter. I actually, was kind of nervous to kind of rib him a little bit when he went running into the stands. I was like, Jeets, man, you seriously? I had one pinch hit opportunity. Your pitcher's throwing 92-mile-an-hour splits that are falling off the table, and you got to run in the stands and catch the ball. And he gets mad at me. He goes, "Well, you do the same thing over here in right field for me. Get off the line." And we a little banter back and forth. And I said, "I promise you, I will go 10 rows up and buy a ticket just to catch one of your foul balls over there. So don't hit it to me anywhere else." And he'd laugh. But, all those guys, Tino Martinez, Roger Clemens, Andy Pettit, Bernie Williams, Paul O'Neill. I had a tremendous amount of respect for him. And as well, our team did. There were some times where he's like, man, these guys just hate each other. But there was never really any hate. It was just competing. And I think what magnified it were the dislike between Red Sox fans and Yankee fans. I think that was the biggest thing. And we wanted what they had. They won titles, and we wanted to win a title. So, yeah, the first 3 games that whole series did not start the way we anticipated or where we wanted it to. And especially like in the movie, if you haven't seen it, the 6-part series, The Captain, is great. Derek Jeter's fantastic. And a tremendous amount of respect for him. And, in game 3, we got crushed. I think we lost like 20-6, 20-8. And, it was like we're kind of not in disarray, but we're just like, what in the world is going on? We're down 3-0. Game 4 comes in. I believe he gets rained out. So we weren't begging for rain. We weren't out there drawing rain turtles like you do in the minor leagues, begging for rainouts to get a day off. But, all of a sudden we realized it was raining, and they're just like, look, it's going to be doing this off and on all night, and we're going to go ahead and push the game to tomorrow. And we're like, all right, well, so we got in a little bit earlier to the ballpark for game 4 the following day, and we kind of had a meeting, and, we're talking about a few things, and you could tell that, guys were, stress level was high in there. We knew what we had to do. And, to me, what I always kind of tell kids is like, when you tell yourself you have to do this and you have to do that when it comes to playing baseball or coming to play football and all that stuff, if it's not built in as kind of like habitual habit form, when you start telling yourself, I have to get a hit here, I have to get a hit there, I have to throw a strike, I bet you that percentage goes way down. And what I try to get them to do is like, hey, I just want you to go out and compete. You know what you have to do. Set that to the side. Don't let that consume you. Just go out and compete and have fun. Well, Veritek, kind of stood up in the meeting, and Tech's not somebody who speaks up a whole lot. He's not the big rah-rah guy and all that. But when he feels passionately about something, he'll let us know. And when he stood up, he goes, look, let's just focus on this. Let's try this out. All right, we got 9 innings. Okay, 9-inning ball game. He goes, let's just worry about trying to win the top of the first. And he goes, for us to win the top of the first, let's just hold them. Let's have good pitch count, do all these things. Let's keep them off the bases the best we can. Let's try to hold them to a 0. If they score a run, okay. when we get to the bottom, if they don't score any runs, let's try to get some base runners. Let's try to push one across. Let's try to win every half inning. Go from there. And then when we add it all up at the end of 9 innings, let's see where we are then. Just focus on trying to win the top and try to win the bottom. You know, if they don't score any in the top and we don't score any in the bottom, the best way we can win that inning is hey, you know what? They didn't have any base runners. We got a couple guys on base, and that means the pitch count got up and all that stuff. So let's just worry about doing that. And I think us as a team, I know me personally, I was like, you know, that's great. That's a great way to approach this, because how are we approaching it when we got into the clubhouse? Oh God, we got to win 4 straight. You know, we got to score runs. We got to shut these guys out. We got to win 4 straight, you know, in order for us to do what we want to do. Well, with that mindset, we would have gotten beat in 4 games. We'd have got swept. And who knows what would have happened in 2005 if we would have gotten swept right there, because the money that we spent, the anticipation and all. So we did that, and then we just plug away. We realized we're in the game at the end of the game, and with that one rainout, it kind of lined up everything from a pitching standpoint. It's like all of a sudden, you know, we get through that one game, then we have Pedro for game 5. Boom. If we get to past that, game 6 is Schill, and then you got game 7. If we get to game 7, anything's going to happen. I mean, we've already flipped the script if we got to that. But, you know, we played some obviously Big Papi, you know, had an unbelievable postseason that year. And, you know, game-winning home run in extra innings, game-winning hit the next night, the Dave Roberts stolen base. I mean, you just realize, you know, the little intricacies in that game, you know, like Jeter said, you know, if it would have been on the other side of the bag, you know, Dave Roberts may have been out. Well, maybe not. I don't know. We'll never know. But just the things that had to happen. But I think the biggest thing that happened from game 4 to game 7 is we stopped worrying about, oh, we got to win all these games. And all we did was we went out and played. We went out and competed. And then once we got to game 6, you know, then we pushed runs across. You could start to see them, you know, I don't say they were tightening up or whatever, but you could see the tide was turning. And then in game 7, you know, we're in the clubhouse, and it wasn't like a party atmosphere, but it was rocking. I mean, we knew everything. Everybody was relaxed. We didn't know what it was like in their clubhouse. So we're sitting there, we're watching, we get there early, we're just hanging out. We're watching a movie on TV, and it was The Miracle, believe it or not. We're watching this, and, you know, I'm like biting my fingernails watching this movie, because it's the first time I've ever seen The Miracle. And great movie. I'm not a hockey player or anything, but it was awesome. And I'm sitting here watching it, and gets to the end of the movie, and I'm like, man, we're going to win today. I feel it, man. I'm excited. And then he goes, hey, guys, we got somebody who wants to come in here and meet y'all. And lo and behold, here comes Mike Eruzione, who was on the movie. And I'm like, wait, that we just watched The Miracle. He goes, oh, yeah, I just want to come in, wish you guys good luck, congratulations where you're at. Go out there and win. I was like, oh, my God, we're going to win tonight. This is no way. I mean, I don't know if somebody put that movie in there on purpose.
Yeah.
Because they knew Mike was going to walk in the door. But when he came in, we're all, like, fired up. I mean, dude, we were jumping out of the seat going, oh, it's Eruzione. And then we started chanting USA. And I just looked around. I can't remember who it was. I told, I was like, man, we're gonna steamroll these guys tonight. Got over that hump. I always tell people that, we went into St. Louis and swept them in 4 games. I was like, well, first of all, it was hard to kind of like really pay attention to the fact that you're in the World Series and it happened so quick, because so much went into that series before against the Yankees. And it felt like we won 2 world championships. We got over the hump of the Yankees and then won the actual real world championship against the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's an interesting parallel between you and the U.S. hockey team because they beat the Russian team, and that wasn't the gold medal game. Then they had to
No,
get ready for the gold medal game. So you, again, you beat the evil empire, come back, the only team to ever come back from 3-0. You win that ALCS. Was it hard? I mean, obviously you sweep the Cardinals. Was it ever hard to kind of stay on that high going from the Yankees to the Cardinals, even though, as you said, it was the World Series?
it was a runaway freight train. It was like, our whole mindset and attitude was so sky high. And I always try to say, it's like a snowball effect, but I say it's a snowball effect with a freight train in it. And every time the freight train is going down a steeper incline, they're also adding on another car to it. So it's becoming faster and faster and heavier and heavier. That was, after we had beat the Yankees, and I think we had to wait a couple nights to see who was going to win between the Cardinals and Astros. And I was like, they need to hurry up and finish this other series because I'm ready to play. And it didn't slow down at all. I know we had the first 2 games in Boston, and I know the first game wasn't a very pretty one, but we ended up winning. I can't remember what the score was. It was, I think we had scored double digits, I thought. But when I knew we were perfectly fine was there was a kind of a soft line drive that was hit into left field, and Manny Ramirez goes over, and instead of diving head first, excuse me, he jumped in the air like he's going to slide feet first into second to catch the ball. So he's going to catch it, and his left knee hits the ground, and he digs like a trench. I don't know if you see, probably about a foot and a half long, and when his knee hit, he catapulted over, and you see highlights of it. But what you didn't see was Johnny and I were in the outfield, and we had our gloves in front of us, and other guys in the infield were like, "Oh my God, how funny was that?" We're laughing, and Millar's just sitting there with his hands on his hips, going, "What?" And we're just like. And we moved our gloves down, looked over at Manny. We're just like, Manny goes, just stupid.
You had a front row seat of Manny being Manny, right?
Manny being Manny. And right then and there, we were like, we are at the level we need to play because we're having a good time out here. There's no tension at all. I mean, we played great. Our pitching staff did a fantastic job. I tell people looking back on my career, whether I was in high school, little league, the best way I can say it, I just wanted to win. And I just wanted to be a part of winner. I know that sounds like it's coming the same statements that, Derek Jeter said. But when he said them, it hit home with me too. It's like, yeah, all I wanted to do was win. And I wanted to be on a team, our teammates where we had a chance to win, and, that's what I wanted to do through high school, even in little leagues and Pop Warner and all that stuff. And then getting to the minor leagues, I wanted to win a minor league championship. We never did. We always had the team that came in first place, it seemed like, but never won a minor league championship. But to be in an organization that I was drafted by that had 86-year drought of winning a world championship. A side note to when I signed, I was young, and I'm answering questions from a major media market. And I just said, I want to help bring a world championship to Boston. And I remember there's a few people that chuckled in there because at the time I didn't really know the whole history of the Red Sox. And in the paper the next day, I don't remember what paper it was, the article, who it was from, but the article kind of made it out to be, like, okay, this kid really doesn't know what he's talking about. The Red Sox haven't won a world championship. And you know what? I'm sorry. Don't feel bad if you finish your whole career without winning a world championship, because, it looks like the Red Sox are quote unquote cursed. And, I read that. I was like, why would that guy say that? I didn't know any better. I was 19 years old, and my dad cut it out of the paper. And he goes, I tell you what, when you win a world championship, then we're going to buy a loaf of bread and some mayonnaise, and he's going to eat that. And that stuck with me. And I didn't think about that all the time, obviously. But when we won the world championship, I remember telling my dad, I said, we still have that article somewhere. And we had it at home. But the one thing is I didn't know who wrote the article. And to this day, if I still had the article and I knew who wrote it and he was still alive, I promise you, you're not going to pick the bread that you want. I'm going to pick the bread, and I got some mayonnaise, and you can eat that article. So that's just kind of a little side note that's all I wanted to do was be a part of a team. I knew I wasn't going to be the one to lead it. I just wanted to be a part of it. And it was unbelievable when we won and came back to Boston, because a real good friend of mine, one of my best friends in the game, Brian Dahlbeck, who, I love him like he's a brother. I see him every year. He and I coach on the same team at fantasy camp down with the Red Sox. We always talked about, in the years prior, like, if we win a championship here, man, the only way that we're going to be able to drive around in this town with a trophy is in the duck boats, which are these old World War II boats that are land and water boats. And you ever go to Boston, there's one thing you got to do if you don't, other than go to Fenway Park, you got to go on duck boat tour. And believe it or not, when we got back, we're getting ready to go around for the parade, and what they have lined up out in front of Fenway, all the players got on duck boats, because we went the path of the duck boats, and we were informed that there were thousands and thousands of people um, up and down the bay out there, the Charleston River. And so they altered that route and went and circled around the river, because so many fans couldn't get to where we were on the parade route. So they just kind of got around, like, well, they're probably going to go in the water in the duck, because they're in the duck boats. We had no plan of doing that. It changed. We didn't care. And so it was pretty awesome to see all the fans out there in the duck boats. But unbelievable, the stories that I heard from fans who travel from all over just to go to the World Series and to the parade. But one thing that touched me the most is, not long after that, we took the trophy. Different players took the trophy around the state of Massachusetts, and we went out west, and we passed this enormous graveyard, and we're on the highway, and it was just enormous, but it caught everyone's eye, and everybody just looked at it, and you didn't hear a sound. It was probably 7 or 8 players and then other personnel from the Red Sox, but the entire graveyard looked like a sea of red, where family members had gone out and put Red Sox hats and blankets and flowers and all this stuff at the grave sites of probably moms and dads and grandfathers that were diehard Red Sox fans that never saw the Red Sox win a world championship. And it was unbelievable, and just a reminder of how much it meant to the fan base up there.
Almost out of time here, but we talked about your major league debut. I want to talk about your last game on the field in a Red Sox uniform, October 1st, 2006. Terry Francona, your manager, takes you out in the 5th inning, last game of the season. You kind of know maybe that's the end of the road, the end of your run with the Red Sox. What was that moment like for you that day, and coming out of the game, and maybe the ovation that you got as well?
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy day. I knew I didn't know I was going to be taken out of the game. And the thing, we didn't even know if the game was going to happen, because it rained all day and rained throughout the game. It was just kind of a miserable thing. And when I look back on it, I knew it was going to be my, last game in a Red Sox uniform I really wish it would have been just a normal day. I don't care if it was 40 degrees out there, but I knew with this weather that we had, I didn't even think we were going to play the game. And I think when it came to the point that early, when Tito took me out, it meant a lot to Tito because he wanted me to do it, and he wanted to do that for me, and for the fans. It was, it stunk for me because this is the only organization that I had known. I was always a player that I wanted to literally be drafted by the Red Sox, and I wanted to stay and retire as a Red Sox. Believe it or not, I didn't, free agency. I missed that because I got a 3-year contract. I did have a 2-year contract, believe it or not, that year, an extension that they were still kind of fine tuning and all that stuff. I got hurt, and the Red Sox took it off the table after that, which, kind of upset me. I didn't understand it at the time. It did upset me because I really wanted to be here, be with the Red Sox. I didn't leave because I wanted to go out and experience free agency. I wanted to stay there. And, but for the fans that were still there, because it was an ugly day. It was just bad weather and all. I am eternally grateful for the fans that stayed there. I love Tito, my teammates, that I didn't really know what to do. It was like, I told Tito, I was like, I didn't want to come out of the game. I know why you did it, but I didn't want to come out of the game. I never wanted to come out of the game. And nobody does, but it meant a lot to me. And for everything that the organization, the players, my teammates, people that, were not there, that were there when I first started, even in the minor leagues, all the coaches and everything. It's kind of like that same old thing about, everybody that put me in that position to get drafted, everybody that had, not only them, but then you add in all the personnel, whether it's on field or off the field, that helped put me in a position to have had, the kind of career I had in Boston, winning a world championship. And, but I did get to come back a couple more times with playing with the Indians, and just, better day, unbelievable ovation. Boston fans will always have my heart. I love those guys. They're passionate. They are tough. They will boo you. But the thing is that, I kind of grew up, even though my dad was a doctor and all that stuff, my dad was tough on me. My coaches were tough on me, Brewster, Coach Miller. And that's the way, it wasn't, it's more like tough love and discipline, dedication, all those things that you wanted to personify, in your life, in your career as an athlete, as well as everyday person. I fit in perfect with, I felt like, the Boston fans. There's a lot of players that didn't like that atmosphere. I've played with guys who said this place is very difficult to play with. I was like, well, first, you can't listen to the media. You just got to turn them off. Don't listen to the radio. Don't read the papers. Just get up, go to the field, eat, and all that. But, the one thing I know was that the fans were with, me personally through the thick and the thin. And I tried to play the game the way it was supposed to be played. I didn't do that every night. I didn't shy away from saying, well, I had the sun was in my eyes, or I had dirt in my eyes, or whatever. If I did something wrong on the field, I was taught by my high school coaches, like, hey, go ahead and cut it right off, before it gets any worse, and say, look, that's on me. I got to be a better player. I got to be a better this or that. I made that mistake. I can't do anything about it right now except learn from it and then move on and be ready to play tomorrow. So hopefully the fans kind of respected that, and I tried to come out there and atone for some of those mistakes, but just go out and play the game and play it the right way. And and just win. I didn't care about. I mean, obviously, I cared about all my statistics. I wish I could have had better statistics. I wish I could have played a lot longer. I played through a lot of injuries that probably hurt me in the long run, because I just love to compete. I love to be out on the field, and I wish I would have taken better care of my body. But you know what? Those opportunities of playing professional baseball for me, you never knew when it was going to end. So I wanted to maximize as much as I possibly could being on the field. And, but I love that organization. I always will. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, you certainly endeared yourself to the fans the way you played. And, when it was all said and done, 12 years, over 1,000 games you played, that World Series championship, retired in 2009. And I'm sure you put a lot of effort since then into your sons, and to see them now to go to NC State, a place that, again, you were signed to go to. You didn't because you went professionally to the Red Sox. But what has that been like to impart the game to them? And, they probably don't remember, obviously, your playing days maybe as much, but how much do you talk to them and use your playing days to help them in their careers now and what they want to do with baseball?
Not only was it, kind of the learning experience, watch them go through the learning experience of playing, all the sports. I had them starting off, they played every sport, and they continued that for several years. But it's also a learning experience and a maturation for myself. I couldn't go out day one and coach them as I was coached, maybe at an older level. I had to learn how to communicate with them. And what also helped was I had some good friends that I trusted a lot out here in Holiday. He and I played football together. He was a voice on the football field, as well as, Fletcher Bates in baseball. He and I played together. He has a hitting facility here locally in town. And, I kind of, not just those two specifically, but they just kind of come to my mind at first that would help me, not only would they help me in coaching them, but also in a sense to where they would say, hey, look, take a step back, take a deep breath, and then let's go. But I think the biggest thing was, and watching them progress over the years is it's real easy for me to say, hey, look, you are Chase or you are Luke. You don't have to be me. All right. Yeah, I know, that's, I got to be this good. I never knew what was going on, between their ears when it came to stuff like that. And I also realized that, believe it or not, there's a lot of people that if they weren't close to me, a lot of them would say, well, they expected my sons to be like I was at their age, or like I was when I ended up being a professional ball player. And I don't think it was a situation where they ever heard that, but I think they at times felt that. So they had different, kind of a mountain decline than I really, expected them to have, or were really pretty much the way I thought they were going to have it. I didn't think about that, but it just got to the point where it's like, hey, look, most athletics and things, there's some fundamentals that help make you a better person, whether it's doing sports or doing business or anything like that. Let's hammer down these fundamentals. And when you're building a house, we don't start with the roof. We're going to start with the foundation. So, build that foundation. And the biggest thing I wanted to do is I want you to love what you do. And if there's not a passion in a certain sport, you don't have to play the sport for me to approve of it. I'm like, I don't go that route, but whatever we do, we're going to do it the right way, and we're going to go all out in it. We're not going to just kind of go through the motions. And there were some ups and downs for them. There was a lot of ups and downs, and as well as a lot of kids out there, playing sports nowadays, because I think there's some people that surround these kids that think they're going to get drafted in football or baseball. They see the millions and millions of dollars that are going around, And that may be the case for some kids, but you can't put them in an atmosphere when they're 8, 9, and 10 years old to think that's going to happen, because there's a long time from 8 years old to being 18 years old. And so it was always things that I learned that I felt like they needed to make sure were, strong in their heart. Obviously the first thing is that, that having Christ in their heart, Christ led, Christ is leading their path. That was most important to me, to have a Christ-filled heart. And then, family, your friends, then you have your academics, which, I wasn't always big on academics. I mean, I went to school, I studied because I feared my coaches. That's what it was. Nowadays, it's not like that. And there's a lot that have been taken away, I think, from coaches and teachers that could really benefit the students. But that's a whole nother story. But in the same sense, and I tell teachers and I tell coaches, I was like, look, I've raised my sons to do things a little bit differently. If there is something that you need to tell them, you need to tell them. You don't need my permission. And I wanted them to, whatever they do it the right way, and they work hard at it. Don't be satisfied with just doing something okay. Be satisfied with doing it, all the way. And but also having that mindset that, you got to care about, you got to treat people with respect, whether it's people your age, whether it's older people. Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Please. Those kind of things. The exact same things that were preached to me when I was coming through high school, they're not being preached to them now in high school. Like I said, would be a lot better, but that's the way I want them to approach things in life. And when you go out onto the field, you play a teammate of mine, obviously Jason Veritek, the captain, he said this: he played for an audience of one, and that audience is the man upstairs. And I think that kind of just puts things in perspective. And it also can take a lot of things off, a lot of weight off your shoulders, because for them, they felt like that they were playing for not only their teammates and their high school, but they're also saying, I got to play, for my mom and dad. I got to play for my dad's legacy. And I'm like, look, this has got nothing to do. My legacy's done. Okay. It may not be done for me right now, but my path has changed. I was like, this is your path, and just having the right foundation for both of them. They got a tremendous amount of work ethic. I've been really proud of them, how they, especially, it was tough on Chase because Chase was a COVID grad. So he decided to take a gap year, and he played for Pro 5 Baseball Academy out of Raleigh, who is a phenomenal organization when it comes to baseball. Also took some online courses, had pretty much what a collegiate season would look like. But also that organization, it's faith-based. It's also, they have the guys go out into the community and give back into the community, volunteer. So that allowed Chase to not only grow as a person tremendously, but also as a baseball player, and got an opportunity to go to state. So he'll be starting his second year. And Luke has really kind of, motivated himself, after those COVID years, and everything got kind of switched around. Has worked extremely hard in the weight room, on the field. Great coaching staffs around him, great people around him, and he it kind of paid off, getting an opportunity, getting the scholarship this past summer to play at NC State. He's in his senior year this year, so it'll be the following year, the 23-24 season. And I told him, I said, that's congratulations, but job's not over yet. You still got to, we got to do the right things academically, finish strong through this year. But the process of, academics as well as playing baseball and all that stuff, you can't ever stop learning. And that's what I've told myself. That's what I've told people when I've spoken to them. The day that I stop learning about being the best baseball coach or the best baseball player you can be, then it's time to move on to something different. Don't even deal with the game anymore. Because if you're somebody that doesn't want to get better, being able to coach kids and help kids progress on, then there's really no sense in you being a part of the game. Now, yes, the game has changed a lot, and there's analytics, and there are some analytics that are good for players. But when I hear about 8 to 12-year-olds worried about their exit velocity and launch angle, it drives me up a wall, because all that tells me is that when young kids, even in high school, when they hit the ball, if they have to look at a screen to see if they hit it well or not, that's not telling me that they know much about the game. So that's the only thing that worries about me, is the feel of the game and knowing how to play it, learning how to play it, and not sitting there and having a coach tell you everything to do on the field. So that's what we're trying to do over at New Hanover right now, make these guys all around good baseball players as well as human beings.
Well, you've certainly done that with your sons. Great career for you, and great advice to impart to those that may be watching this, younger folks that may be watching this as well. And Trot, I can't thank you enough for joining us here today and reliving some of those memories. And again, that great run in 2004 to end the curse of the Bambino. I'm sure you are big time in Boston whenever you go back there, and I'm sure you enjoy your time when you get back there. But again, I thank you for your time here today, joining us here in the front row.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Appreciate it. You guys were great. Hold your water, baby.
Well, my thanks to Trot Nixon for joining us here today. Great stories. Great to hear the passion he has and the love he has for the Boston Red Sox fans, and certainly did great things there in helping them win a World Series championship. Our thanks, as always, to you for watching or listening today. We continue to ask you to subscribe. Be sure to do that. Do not miss any of our upcoming episodes. More great guests come your way. Stay tuned for that. Mike Vaccaro here, JR Equipment behind the scenes. It's In the Front Row with Mike Vaccaro. Have a great day, everybody.